In this episode of the Social Surgery Show, we dismantle the tired narrative of deadbeat dads and explore the deeper societal biases that paint men as inherently privileged. It's a conversation that pushes past surface-level assumptions to examine the pressures, challenges, and discriminations men face, particularly in a world that often minimizes their struggles. The stereotype of the deadbeat dad has been used to demonize men for decades, often overshadowing the nuanced realities many fathers face. Financial struggles, systemic barriers, and biased custody laws frequently position men as failures before they even get a chance to prove their worth as fathers. This narrative not only diminishes their role, but also ignores the sacrifices and efforts of countless men who want to be active, supportive parents, but are often boxed out of the opportunity by systemic bias or cultural stigmas. The idea that men have life easy is a notion that doesn't hold up under scrutiny. Men face their own forms of suffering, ones that are often invisible or dismissed. The lack of biological challenges like menstruation, pregnancy, or menopause is frequently weaponized against men as evidence of their supposed ease of living. But men's suffering often comes in other forms. High suicide rates among men, driven by societal expectations to man up and suppress vulnerability. Dangerous jobs with men disproportionately filling roles that come with high risk to life and health. Legal biases, particularly in family courts, where custody often defaults to mothers, leaving fathers to fight uphill battles for their children. Globally, men are overwhelmingly more likely to be in prison than women. According to available data, men constitute about 93 to 95% of the total global prison population. Women make up roughly 5 to 7% of the incarcerated population worldwide. Key insights: population disparity. The vast difference is consistent across nearly all countries, driven by factors such as the types of crimes committed, sentencing disparities, and societal roles. Men are more likely to be involved in violent crimes, which often result in longer sentences. Women's prison population growth. Despite being a minority, the rate of incarceration for women is growing faster than that of men globally. From 2000 to the 2020s, the number of incarcerated women increased by approximately 60%, compared to a 22% increase for men. Common crimes by gender. Men, more likely to be incarcerated for violent crimes like assault or murder and property crimes. Women, more likely to be incarcerated for non-violent crimes, often related to poverty or societal pressures, such as drug-related offenses or theft. This disparity underscores the need to address systemic issues like crime prevention, gender-specific interventions, and rehabilitation tailored to societal expectations and pressures for both men and women. Suicide rates are significantly higher among men globally. Data indicates that men are more likely to die by suicide than women, with the male-to-female ratio varying across countries. This disparity highlights the critical need for targeted mental health interventions for men. Men are frequently victims of violence perpetrated by other men. In England and Wales, for instance, men accounted for 60% of violence victims in the year ending March 2020. This statistic challenges the perception that men are inherently safer from physical harm. The deadbeat dad stereotype fails to consider systemic issues that can marginalize fathers. Factors such as biased custody laws, financial hardships, and lack of support can push fathers away from their families. Research indicates that fathers are more likely to remain involved in their children's lives if they actively participate in childcare during the first year of parenthood. Gender biases in healthcare can lead to misdiagnoses and inadequate treatment for both men and women. For example, women's symptoms are often attributed to mental health conditions, potentially overlooking physical illnesses. Conversely, men's mental health issues may be underdiagnosed due to societal expectations of stoicism. A growing societal trend sees women belittling men for their perceived lack of biological suffering. This can manifest in discriminatory attitudes, where men are seen as emotionally or physically incapable of understanding hardship. Yet while women experience challenges like childbirth, men experience the weight of being sole providers in many households, a burden that often goes unnoticed or unappreciated. Emotional neglect, as society has historically undervalued men's mental health needs. Higher expectations to perform in traditional roles such as leadership and labor-intensive work. Modern societal pressures have led to a breakdown of traditional roles. Women have stepped into spaces historically dominated by men, but in doing so, many have adopted traits they once criticized: competitiveness, stoicism, and ego-driven ambition. Meanwhile, men are increasingly stepping into roles of nurturers, showing emotional intelligence, and prioritizing family values. This shift highlights the irony in gender criticisms. The traits once devalued in men are now being mimicked by women, often to the detriment of relationships and societal cohesion. This episode underscores the importance of moving beyond blame and stereotypes. Both men and women have unique challenges, and it's counterproductive to diminish one gender's struggles to elevate the other's. Men are not privileged for avoiding certain biological experiences, just as women are not weaker for enduring them. Instead, we need to foster empathy and understanding, recognizing the full scope of human experience. By breaking down these harmful narratives, we hope to pave the way for more balanced discussions about gender, family, and societal expectations. The abuse and discrimination men face, whether through societal biases, systemic injustices, or interpersonal violence, are deeply concerning and unacceptable. These issues should not require the birth of a Me Too movement for men a decade from now to gain recognition and resolution. Waiting for such a watershed moment perpetuates the toxic and sadistic ideology that men's suffering is less important or even deserved, and it allows the damage to continue unchecked. Men face a range of abuses that are often dismissed or minimized. Domestic violence and abuse. Many men feel unable to report abuse due to stigma or fear of being ridiculed. Workplace harassment. Men are not immune to toxic work environments or harassment, yet their experiences are often overshadowed by a focus on female victims. Legal discrimination. Biased custody laws and societal stereotypes frequently portray men as unfit caregivers, stripping them of their parental rights. Mental health neglect. The societal expectation for men to man up leads to high rates of suicide and untreated mental health issues. The Me Too movement highlighted systemic issues of abuse and power imbalances against women, sparking global conversations and changes. However, the same urgency must be applied to addressing men's suffering now, rather than waiting for an equivalent reckoning. Prevention over reaction. Addressing these issues now avoids allowing them to fester and reach a boiling point. Equality and advocacy. True equality means advocating for the fair treatment of all genders, not just focusing on one while ignoring the other. Deconstructing toxic narratives. Society must reject the sadistic ideology that men's pain is irrelevant, or that men are inherently perpetrators and never victims. If we wait for a future movement to address these issues, the damage will already have been done. Generations of men will have endured abuse, isolation, and stigma, perpetuating cycles of pain and anger. Furthermore, a delayed reckoning risks framing men's experiences as a reaction rather than a legitimate concern, diminishing the seriousness of their struggles. Immediate solutions. Cultural shift. Challenge stereotypes that portray men as invulnerable or unworthy of compassion. Legal reforms. Address gender biases in laws and systems that disproportionately disadvantage men, such as custody cases and domestic violence shelters. Public awareness. Normalize discussions about men's mental health, abuse, and struggles without stigmatization. Empowerment without antagonism. Advocacy for men should not be seen as a zero-sum game, but as a step toward mutual understanding and shared humanity. The abuse toward men is not an issue for the distant future. It is happening now. Addressing it requires the courage to confront uncomfortable truths, and the commitment to fostering a society that values fairness and compassion for everyone, regardless of gender.